What is the beef, chefs? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be located watching this. This is for you if you're feeling burnt out and you want to give up. And I'm going to start this off by saying that I speak to chefs literally on a daily basis who feel this, who go through this, and I try and consult them and coach them on why these things are happening and what they need to do to change them. And in this situation, chef, where you've got this feeling of burnout, of overwhelm, what ends up happening is you want to give up on everything within your life, whether that thing be cooking, which is the thing that you were originally very passionate about, that you got to a point where it's actually taken so much out of you that you want to stop doing it. It also makes you want to stop paying attention within your relationships because your time off is so precious that you stop paying attention to, your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever. You actually stop being present. You stop hearing what they're saying. With your kids, you can't play with them for more than, 5 minutes, or whether you won't even get off the couch and play with them at all. These are very, very normal feelings, and this is very, very normal for anyone that is at that burnout point. When I speak to a lot of these chefs, it's always a sad story that, this thing that they love so much, eventually over time through unfair employment, employers that are just fucking dickheads who deliberately get away with abusing their staff. They basically get the staff and the chef, which is you, to do hours that are unreasonable. They're ridiculous, 70, 80, 90 hour weeks, even though you're probably contracted for a 40 to 45 hour week, and when you get in to that environment, you work those hours for so much time, your mind and your brain thinks so much about what's going on in work, all the little problems, the things with the menu, the food, what someone has said to you, whatever. Your brain, you can't switch off from it, and you have all of these bad habits and vices to cope with that stress, whether that's smoking, drinking, drugs, smoking weed, eating shit food, whatever. It's like you cope with the life that you have through these vices. And what ends up happening over time is you start to lose all sense of work-life balance. You start to lose a part of yourself, and you start to lose hope in the thing that you're doing, and you want to stop and you want to give up. And you'll always have this thing that if I swap jobs or I move to something else, that my situation would change. And the reality of the situation a lot of the time isn't the case. It's like those problems will probably follow you somewhere else. And I guarantee you that the kitchen that you're working in is not unique in that it's the owner is unfair to the people that they're employing. Like, I guarantee in most kitchens that if you're working for someone who owns a restaurant, they might say they give a fuck about their staff, but they don't really give a fuck about their staff. They don't really, and that's the truth, especially in Ireland and UK. A lot of them do not give a fuck about their staff. That's why they'll contract you for 40 and fucking make you work 80 and pay you for half the hours. That's what's happening. They're paying you for half the hours that you've done because that's just the way things are. The truth is that happens in most kitchens. So even if you walk away from that job and you move into something else, there's a very, very good chance that it's probably going to happen again. And it's very hard to see because it's very disappointing to see so many chefs getting to this point and they end up just fucking walking away from the industry completely. And what I will say, and the conversation that I have with chefs every day, is that if you feel this burnout and you feel this point of breaking where you just don't want to fucking do it anymore and you can't do it, it's vital that you are able to take it some time to step back and give yourself some perspective. When you're so entrenched and focused in something, it literally becomes everything in your mind. It becomes everything when actually there's a lot more to life than what you're dealing with in work. And I've been trapped in that situation where you're so focused on what's happening in work that you can't switch off from it at all. And eventually your headspace is dominated by it, and that's when the stress, the anxiety, the worry, the pressure starts to creep in. Let that happen over time for a couple of months and a couple of years, and all of a sudden you're going to find yourself in a very, very dark spot mentally. I know I was in that same spot. What's important is that you're able to take a step back and you're able to look at the situation and go, okay, cool, what the fuck is going on here? Can I just like a holiday for a week to take your mind off it? 2 weeks is even better. The second part of that is once you've taken the time to literally decompress and step away from the problems, then all of a sudden you can breathe and you can focus on what needs to happen going forward. The second part of it then is, I would always say that the majority of chefs' problems stem from how they're living their life. They live their life in a very negative way because the life that they have in their career forces them to do so. You know, you need fucking, you know, smoking, drinking, drugs, shit food, all of that stuff becomes a fixture in your life because you're trying to cope with the stress, you're trying to cope with the pressure. My second step would be, once you've stepped back and actually had some time to breathe, it's like, let's start fixing these problems. Let's start putting a structure and a lifestyle in place for yourself where you have something that switches you off. You know, exercise might seem like something that you don't have time for, but the reality is, if you were to make time for it, your headspace is so much clearer. Your headspace is so much better. Like physically, obviously, that's a great thing, and you have more energy and your posture's improving, your flexibility is getting better. You're seeing progression in yourself if you have the right program and the right path. But at the end of the day, exercise for chefs is primarily mental. It's keeping yourself in check mentally. It's so you're, you know, clear-minded and you've gotten rid of all the shit that's pent up inside you, so that when you do go into work or you do go home, you do have a clear headspace, you do have clarity of mind, and you're not snapping, you know. And for first and foremost, you're actually happy in yourself. You know, you actually feel good, whereas most of the time, most chefs walk around feeling absolutely terrible. So understand that once you get that step back and you can breathe, and then you start fixing, you know, the bad habits, and you start replacing them with good habits, and you start adding structure to things, all of a sudden then you start to get a taste of what life is actually like. And then you gain perspective on what your career should look like. What I see a lot of when I coach chefs and they make this massive transformation in their lives is they actually gain an understanding of what they're willing to accept and what they're not willing to accept. For a lot of chefs, you take the abuse from your owner because you just think that's the way it is. That's just the way a chef has to be. You just have to do those hours. You just have to fucking work your whole off until you're dead, you know, which is bullshit. It is. It's bullshit. It's a fucking industry thing that's been there for so long, and so many old school chefs have it. But the reality is that same mentality is what the attrition rate is about. And it's why chefs are being fucking, you know, dropping like flies, literally. And what's important here is that once you gain a bit of insight into what it feels like to have a work-life balance, have a good lifestyle, feel healthy, feel fit, then you're like, I'm not going to let my career rob me of this. I can still make a living cooking. So that might mean a hard conversation with your owner. That might mean a hard conversation with the person who's employing you. But if you're good at what you do and you value yourself, you will not let yourself go into that stage of being abused again with insane hours, shitty pay, and generally just expecting you to give up every part of your life, coming in on days off to cover people because they can't be bothered to staff the fucking kitchen. Like, you stop accepting that bullshit, because that is what it is. It's bullshit. They're testing you. You're literally being said, right, this is what we need you to do, and you're just supposed to take that on because you're loyal. Fuck that. There is no loyalty in this game. Look after yourself, and you look after your fucking family or the people who depend on you. That's it. If you don't do that, they will shit all over you. If you died tomorrow, your employer would have a fucking notice up looking for a new chef. That's a fucking fact. That's a fact. So really, when it comes to this, chefs, the burnout feeling, it can be fixed, and it's not a permanent fixture, but you have to learn the lesson from it. That if you start taking better care of yourself and you start stepping back from the situation, you start to learn that you're not willing to let whoever's employing you get to that stage again. You're not willing to burn yourself out and annihilate yourself for someone else's fucking benefit to line their pockets, you know? So again, if you're feeling burnt out and you're feeling exhausted and you're at that breaking point, I really, really hope this video helped you. I really hope it was informative for you, chefs. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. If you have any comments, please leave them below, and I will catch you in the next one. Stay safe.